For 4,000 years, the Galactic Council had celebrated the same story. Humanity had been dangerous. Humanity had been reckless. Humanity had nearly plunged the galaxy into chaos before destroying itself. Every child in every member system learned that lesson. It was carved into monuments, encoded into educational archives, and repeated by generations who had never questioned it. On the shining capital world of Aurelian Prime, banners stretched across kilometers of skybridges as the Council prepared for the 4-millennium peace ceremony. Towering holograms displayed ancient victories and historic treaties. Delegates from hundreds of species filled the grand assembly sphere beneath a transparent dome overlooking the planet's endless cityscape. At the center of it all stood High Chancellor Zyrel Thorn. Despite more than 3 centuries of life, he carried himself with the confidence of a ruler at the height of his power. His silver ceremonial robes shimmered beneath thousands of lights as he approached the podium. The chamber fell silent. "Today," Zyrel declared, his voice echoing to the vast hall, "we honor for 1,000 years of unity, prosperity, and peace." Thunderous applause followed. Across countless worlds, billions watched the broadcast. No one noticed the unease among several senior officials seated behind him. They had seen something impossible, far beyond the borders of mapped space. Hidden among ancient monitoring stations that few remember existed, an automated observatory had received a signal. At first, technicians assumed it was corrupted data. Then they checked again. And again, the transmission was real. A frightened analyst stared at the decoded information scrolling across her screen. "Director," she whispered. The station commander hurried over. "What is it?" She pointed at the display. His expression drained of color. The signal contained an identification sequence. "Not alien. Human. That can't be possible," he said. "It gets worse." The analyst enlarged the transmission. Embedded within the message were military authentication codes, historical references, and linguistic patterns matching archived Terran records with near-perfect accuracy. The commander felt his pulse quicken. Humans were extinct. They had been extinct for 4,000 years. Everyone knew that, yet the evidence on the screen suggested otherwise. Within hours, encrypted reports reached the highest levels of the Council government. The celebration on Aurelian Prime ended behind closed doors as emergency meetings replaced ceremonial banquets. Inside a secured chamber beneath the assembly sphere, senior officials studied the incoming data. Silence hung heavily over the room. Finally, Zyrel spoke. Verification. A scientist activated projection. Authenticity exceeds 99.9%, Chancellor. Another official shook his head. "No, that's impossible. The signal says otherwise. What exactly does it contain?" The scientist hesitated. Then he answered. "A message." Zyrel's eyes narrowed. "Play it." The room darkened. A single voice emerged from the speakers. Calm, measured, human. "If this transmission has been received, then humanity has returned." Several officials visibly recoiled. The recording continued. "We remember Earth." The message ended. Nobody spoke for several seconds. At last, one counselor broke the silence. "They survived." Zyrel remained motionless. His face revealed nothing, but his mind raced. Ancient fears, buried for centuries, suddenly felt very real. "Seal all information," he ordered. "Chancellor." Immediately, the room obeyed. Far beyond the galaxy, hidden in the darkness between galactic arms, another civilization was already moving. A civilization the Council believed dead. Massive structures surrounded entire stars. Artificial worlds drifted through engineered nebulae. Shipyards larger than planets produced vessels unlike anything known within the Milky Way. Humanity had not merely survived. It had evolved. At the center of one immense orbital complex stood Admiral Elias Voss. He watched thousands of warships preparing for departure. Each vessel represented centuries of planning. Each crew member carried a memory of a world they had never seen. A young officer approached. "The fleet is ready, Admiral." Elias nodded. For a moment, his gaze lingered on a distant sphere suspended within the station's central chamber. The memory vault. Inside were preserved records from old Earth. Every voice, Every image, every final transmission. Humanity had spent 4,000 years ensuring one thing would never happen. They would never forget. Elias entered the vault alone. Ancient recordings flickered across the walls. Cities burning. Evacuation broadcasts. Families saying goodbye. The final moments of a civilization condemned by those who feared it. A little girl's voice emerged from one recording. Will somebody remember us? The question echoed through the chamber. Elias stood silently. Then he answered, though the child had been dead for 4 millennia. Yes. His reflection stared back from the polished floor. We remembered. He turned toward the exit. Outside, countless ships waited. Not for conquest, not for glory. For truth, for justice, for Earth. Moments later, the largest fleet in human history departed the hidden civilization that had sheltered their species for 40 centuries. Across intergalactic darkness, hyperspace gates ignited one after another. Thousands of vessels vanished into brilliant light. And on the distant frontier of the Milky Way, isolated sensor stations suddenly detected an approaching force so vast that their computers initially classified it as a navigational error. It wasn't an error. Humanity was coming home. The first sighting spread across the galaxy faster than any official announcement. Merchant crews reported impossible readings. Frontier defense stations transmitted emergency alerts. Civilian observatories captured images that flooded planetary networks before authorities could suppress them. Thousands of ships had emerged from hyperspace, not in one location. Everywhere, entire task forces appeared simultaneously near major trade routes, strategic junctions, and populated systems. They didn't fire. They didn't invade. They simply arrived. Fear did the rest. On Aurelian Prime, alarm sirens echoed to the Galactic Council's military command center. Officers rushed between tactical displays as new contacts appeared by the minute. A fleet commander stared at the expanding map. How many? A technician swallowed hard. We've stopped counting. The chamber fell silent. No civilization possessed this level of logistical capability. Moving fleets across such distances should have required decades. Yet humanity had done it in hours. Far above the planet, one human vessel detached from the formation and transmitted a priority signal. The message was accepted automatically by every major communication network in the galaxy. A familiar face appeared. Admiral Elias Voss. His dark uniform carried no decorations beyond a small emblem of Earth. When he spoke, his voice remained calm. Citizens of the galaxy, for 1,000 years ago, humanity was condemned to extinction. You were told we destroyed ourselves. You were told we were a threat to peace. He paused. You were lied to. Billions watched. Nobody moved. Elias continued. We have not returned to conquer. We have returned with evidence. The transmission ended. Seconds later, countless files flooded public networks. Videos, military records, council communications, archive battle footage. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as scenes from ancient Earth appeared on screens everywhere. Families running through collapsing cities. Orbital bombardments targeting civilian zones. Council fleets surrounding a blue world. Orders authorizing total extermination. The reaction was immediate. Shock became outrage. On dozens of worlds, citizens gathered outside government buildings demanding answers. Journalists abandoned scheduled programming. Historians began verifying documents. The evidence held. Every piece. Within hours, the official narrative that had survived 4,000 years began falling apart. Inside the council citadel, High Chancellor Zyrel watched the crisis unfold. An advisor stepped forward. The leaks are spreading beyond containment. Zyrel's expression hardened. They are not leaks. The advisor hesitated. Chancellor? They are weapons. Across the table, another official spoke. Several member governments are requesting independent investigations. And they want access to classified archives. The room grew tense. Everyone understood what that meant. If the archives were opened, the truth would become impossible to control. Zyrel rose from his chair. No access. No negotiations. That will only increase suspicion. It doesn't matter. His gaze settled on the tactical display. Human fleets remained stationary. No attacks, no demands, no invasions, just evidence. That unsettled him more than warships. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship Resolute Dawn, Elias monitored incoming reports. A communications officer approached. Public response is exceeding projections. Military movements? The Council is mobilizing. Elias nodded. He had expected that. Power rarely surrendered willingly. A warning alert flashed across the command deck. Hostile fleet detected. Several Council battle groups had entered a neighboring system. Their weapons were active. The lead admiral transmitted immediately. This is Council Defense Fleet 7. Human vessels are ordered to withdraw or face military action. The bridge remained quiet. Elias activated a channel. We have initiated no aggression. Your presence is aggression. We are presenting facts. You are destabilizing the galaxy. Elias leaned slightly forward. The truth often does. The connection terminated. Minutes later, the Council fleet advanced. Hundreds of warships accelerated toward human positions. On countless worlds, citizens watched live broadcasts. Everyone expected a battle. What followed stunned them. Council vessels opened fire first. Energy lances crossed the darkness. Human ships responded instantly, not with destruction, with precision. Invisible pulses swept through the attacking formation. One after another, Council warships lost propulsion. Weapons shut down. Targeting systems failed. Entire squadrons drifted helplessly through space. The engagement lasted less than 8 minutes. Not a single human vessel was damaged. Not a single Council ship was destroyed. The defeated admiral stared at his powerless controls. How? No answer came. The footage spread throughout the galaxy before military sensors could react. For many observers, the battle changed everything. Humanity possessed overwhelming strength, yet they had chosen restraint. Questions multiplied. If humans wanted revenge, why spare their enemies? Why present evidence instead of launching attacks? Why offer transparency while the Council hid records? Pressure mounted daily. Several member governments publicly demanded accountability. Protests erupted across major worlds. Some planetary leaders openly threatened withdrawal from the Council. The political foundation that had supported galactic authority for millennia began to crack. In response, Zyrel made his move. A galaxy-wide emergency session was convened. Every major network carried the announcement live. The Chancellor appeared before the Assembly. His voice carried absolute certainty. Humanity's return places every civilization at risk. Their technological superiority represents an existential threat. Effective immediately, the Galactic Council authorizes full military mobilization. Gasps filled the chamber. Zyrel continued. All member states are ordered to prepare for war. A moment later, thousands of military commands activated across the galaxy. Shipyards accelerated production. Defense fleets assembled. Armies prepared for conflict. Watching from the bridge of the Resolute Dawn, Elias studied the incoming reports. The Council had chosen its path. Despite everything humanity had revealed, despite every opportunity to face the truth, those in power had decided to protect their lives with force. He looked toward the stars beyond the viewport. The war he had hoped to avoid had officially begun. War spread across the Milky Way, but it did not unfold the way the Galactic Council had expected. Their strategists had prepared for invasion. Instead, they faced exposure. Human fleets advanced steadily through contested regions, securing communication hubs, shipyards, and archive facilities while avoiding civilian centers. Every captured system became another source of information. Every recovered record weakened the Council's version of history. As weeks turned into months, entire governments began distancing themselves from Aurelian Prime. Some openly joined humanity. Others declared neutrality. Many simply stopped answering Council orders. The illusion of unity was collapsing. Inside the command center of the Resolute Dawn, a holographic map displayed the shifting political landscape. Commander Lena Hart studied the latest updates. 3 more member worlds had withdrawn support. Elias nodded. They've seen enough. Not everyone. She enlarged a region near the galactic core. The Loyalists are consolidating around key military sectors. They still believe they can win. Lena looked at him. Can they? Elias considered the question. Militarily? No. Politically? His answer took longer. That's the battle that matters. A transmission interrupted the discussion. An intelligence team operating deep inside former council territory had discovered something significant. Hours later, Elias arrived aboard a covert research vessel hidden inside a dead star system. A secure chamber awaited him. Several analysts stood around a projection table. One of them activated a file. We found the original archive. The room became silent. For 4,000 years, humanity had possessed evidence of Earth's destruction. What they lacked was proof of intent. Now they had it. Ancient records appeared above the table. Meeting transcripts, private communications, strategic planning documents. The dates made Elias's expression darken. Many records had been created decades before the war against Earth began. One analyst highlighted a section. Read this. Elias scanned the document. A council founder had written a recommendation to eliminate humanity before its technological growth became uncontrollable. Not after conflict. Before one. The next file was worse. Manufactured incidents. Fabricated intelligence. Deliberate misinformation campaigns designed to portray humanity as a future threat. The justification for genocide had been engineered from the beginning. Lena stared at the evidence. They planned it all. Nobody disagreed. Elias closed the file. For a moment, he felt the weight of 4,000 years pressing against him. Humanity had not been destroyed because it was dangerous. Humanity had been destroyed because it was successful. The distinction changed everything. Release everything, he said quietly. The analysts looked up. All of it. Every document. Within hours, the archive spread across the galaxy. The reaction surpassed anything seen before. Entire populations demanded resignations. Council representatives abandoned their positions. Military personnel questioned orders. Even some loyalist commanders began expressing doubt. The Chancellor's authority weakened with every passing day. Desperate to restore momentum, Council leadership concentrated its remaining strength around Bastion Prime. The fortress system guarded the main route to the capital. Massive defense platforms surrounded its star. Fortified shipyards produced warships continuously. If humanity wanted to reach Aurelian Prime, Bastion Prime had to fall. Council propaganda declared the fortress impenetrable. Elias saw an opportunity. Direct assault would cost lives. So he chose another approach. Human intelligence teams spent days infiltrating local networks. Supply routes were disrupted. Communication channels were manipulated. False fleet movements forced offenders to reposition repeatedly. Confusion spread through the system. By the time the actual attack began, Bastion Prime's defenses were facing the wrong direction. Human ships emerged from hyperspace behind the primary defensive line. The battle lasted less than 6 hours. When it ended, the fortress commander requested negotiations. A secure channel opened. The exhausted officer appeared on screen. You could have destroyed us. Yes, Elias replied. Why didn't you? Because surrender was always an option. The commander looked away. Minutes later, Bastion Prime formally capitulated. News of the defeat spread rapidly. Another symbol of council power had fallen. Yet victory brought an unexpected problem. A classified report arrived aboard the Resolute Dawn. Elias reviewed it alone. The information came from intelligence operatives near the capital. Buried beneath Aurelian Prime existed a weapon unlike anything previously discovered. Ancient, automated, powerful enough to crack an entire planet apart. Human engineers had already developed a method to trigger it remotely. One command, one transmission. The council leadership would vanish. So would billions of civilians. The proposal from several military officials was straightforward. End the war instantly. Avenge Earth. Eliminate those responsible. Elias sat silently as the report remained open before him. The temptation was real. For 1,000 years of suffering. For 1,000 years of memory. One decision could settle the debt. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Lena entered. You've read it? Yes. She already knew what he was considering. And Elias looked toward the stars beyond the viewport. When Earth died, innocent people paid for decisions they never made. Lena remained quiet. We don't repeat that. The report disappeared from the display. The weapon would never be used. Outside, human fleets continued advancing toward the galactic capital. The final confrontation was approaching. This time, humanity would arrive carrying evidence, not extermination. And that difference would decide the future of the galaxy. The journey ended where the lie had begun. Aurelian Prime filled the observation screens of the Resolute Dawn, its vast cities glowing beneath layers of orbital defenses. Once the center of unquestioned authority, it now stood isolated. Human fleets emerged across the system in disciplined formations. No triumphant speeches followed. No threats. No demands. Only silence. Across the galaxy, billions watched live broadcasts from independent networks. The final chapter of a conflict that had reshaped history was unfolding before their eyes. Inside the Council's military command center, tension gripped every officer. Reports arrived faster than they could process them. Defense platforms were surrendering. Patrol groups were standing down. Entire squadrons refused combat orders. The situation was deteriorating by the minute. High Chancellor Zyrel Thorne stared at the tactical displays. The empire he had spent centuries preserving was slipping away. An advisor approached cautiously. Several member governments have officially withdrawn recognition of council authority. Zyrel didn't answer. Another officer stepped forward. Additional fleets are requesting ceasefire negotiations. Still nothing. His silence spoke louder than anger. Far above the planet, the largest fleet battle in galactic history began. Council loyalists launched one final defense. Thousands of warships accelerated toward the incoming human armada. The engagement illuminated space with streams of energy and collapsing shields. Yet the outcome became clear almost immediately. Human technology remained generations ahead. Defensive systems vanished one after another. Weapons platforms lost power. Command networks collapsed. Resistance fractured. What surprised observers most was the precision. Human commanders avoided population centers entirely. Every strike targeted military assets. Every action demonstrated control. Within hours, organized defense ceased. The path to the capital stood open. A shuttle descended from the Resolute Dawn. Admiral Elias Voss traveled with a small escort toward the Council's citadel. No army followed him. No occupation force marched through the streets. Citizens watched in uncertainty as the man they had been taught to fear entered the heart of galactic power. The Grand Chamber awaited him. At its center stood Zyrel. The two leaders faced each other beneath towering monuments built by generations of rulers. For several moments, neither spoke. Then Zyrel broke the silence. "You've won." Elias studied him. "No, the truth won." A faint smile appeared on the Chancellor's face. "You still believe history is that simple?" "History is rarely simple." "Then you understand why Earth had to be destroyed." The statement hung heavily in the air. Elias remained calm. Zyrel continued. "Humanity expanded faster than any civilization before it. Your species adapted to every obstacle. Every projection showed the same outcome. You were afraid. We were responsible." Elias activated a small projector. Ancient documents appeared above them. The original conspiracy, the fabricated intelligence, the extermination plans. Every record humanity had uncovered. Every revelation was transmitted live across the galaxy. Zyrel watched the evidence floating between them. For the first time, uncertainty appeared in his eyes. "You forged a war before humanity ever threatened anyone," Elias said. The Chancellor said nothing. "You murdered billions to preserve political control." Still nothing. "You called it security because the truth sounded monstrous." Across countless worlds, viewers watched in silence. No counterargument came. No explanation survived the facts. The foundation beneath 4,000 years of propaganda finally collapsed. Inside the capital, emergency messages began flooding government systems. Cabinet members resigned. Regional authorities severed ties. Military commanders declared neutrality. The unraveling accelerated. An officer entered the chamber. His voice shook. "Chancellor, the Assembly has voted." Zyrel already knew. The council no longer exists. The words echoed through the vast hall. For a moment, history itself seemed to stop. Then security personnel entered, not to protect Zyrel, to arrest him. The former chancellor offered no resistance. As he was escorted away, he glanced back at Elias. What happens now? Elias answered honestly. Something better. Days later, representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered once again. This time no species held dominance over another. A new charter was signed. Transparency replaced secrecy. Independent oversight replaced concentrated authority. The age of the Galactic Council ended. Far away, another project began. Earth. The world remained scarred after 4,000 years, but life had returned. Oceans shimmered beneath restored skies. Forests spread across recovering continents. Memorials marked the locations of lost cities. Elias stood within a valley where green grass moved gently beneath the wind. Nearby, children from dozens of species played together without understanding the hatred that had once divided the galaxy. He preferred it that way. Lena joined him quietly. We did it. Elias looked toward the horizon. The old anger was gone. The need for revenge had vanished with it. Humanity had survived extinction. It had crossed 4,000 years of darkness. It had defeated those who erased its home. Yet none of that defined the victory. What mattered was a choice made at the end, not destruction. Creation, not punishment. A future. As the sun set over a reborn Earth, the world humanity had lost finally belonged to the living again. And for the first time in 4 millennia, the galaxy looked forward instead of backward.